Alright. Hey guys, Dante here and welcome back to my channel, The Burgos Art. And welcome back to another Sunday night art stream. I might need to adjust that background music, but we'll see how that goes. And today we are painting little monster miniatures, to be precise. We are painting my original sculpture, the Beholder, because I am taking a bunch of these pre-painted white figurines. Correction, not pre-painted. I'm taking a bunch of these resin figurines that are technically meant to be bought and then purchased by anyone who wishes to customize them. But I decided to take a nice batch of them and pre-paint them. Give me a second. Something massive just showed up in the chat. Stand by. Spam. Don't worry about it, guys. Just some spam. Anyway. So, what was I saying? Yes, this is the Beholder. They play on the Beholder from Dungeons and Dragons. Now, I am using a webcam as opposed to my regular phone camera. So, I'm going to have to constantly manually adjust the, what's it called? The focus. So essentially what's on the table is out of focus. What's in hand while I'm painting should stay in focus. But this is the Beholder. It has a D20 for an eye and several random D20 numbers on its eye stalks. And we are just going to do some pre-paints. So these white ones have been primed with some spray paint. And I've done a quick base coat on these guys. I'm not sure what colors I'm going to do the other ones. So far I have been pre-painting a few Beholders, a few of the claw sculptures I've done, and hand sculptures, all for like tabletop stuff or just general display. But yes, I'm going to do a good amount of mixed colored ones and a good amount of white ones, because if you look over on the side where my logo of the Burgos Art is at, you'll see a short list of conventions I already have locked down for the upcoming spring and summer. That includes, the first one is Cosmic Con. It's in Queens, New York, in Flushing, Queens, New York. That'll be in February. That's next month, actually. It's my first time doing that convention. It is a 3-year-old convention, so it'll be nice to check out. After that should be Long Island Tabletop Gaming. That's why I hope to really push these guys. Long Island Tabletop Gaming. That's a 2-day convention as well. And then Brooklyn Comic-Con will be in June. I really like Brooklyn Comic-Con. They've had a rough time in terms of like having to keep moving where the venue's at. But I really like them. I think they're cool. So be sure to check them out as well. So those are the 3 I have lined up. Cosmic Con, Queens, New York, Long Island Tabletop Gaming, Brooklyn Comic-Con, and then I've also signed up for Long Island Retro Gaming later on in summer, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's all retro video games. It's actually a really nice convention. So if you like to check out not just stuff to buy, but lots of free play, like once you buy a ticket, you just go and start playing games of all types spread throughout the convention. Check them out. So yeah, those are the conventions. So with that announcement being done, let's jump into it. I'm gonna take off my headset now that I know I can be heard clearly. Our recycled palette. Let's see. So these were this color with some white, and then we're just gonna have some basic cheap black and white for the grays. So the way I approach these, I do a base color. So you have the base color of the skin, you have a base color for the eyes, a color for the blood / visceral in the mouth, whatever he's drooling out, and then essentially we'll do a wet wash and then a dry brush of a lighter color of all of that. So it's really just a matter of like matching up different colors. Let me see. So I'm going to do a second coat for both of these guys. Let's do a second coat to get the colors nice and filled out. Hope everyone's having a good day. Good weekend so far. Hung out with friends yesterday. Myself. Had a good time. Talking, laughing, acting stupid. All the good stuff. Yeah, that's about right. There goes the big brush. Okay, gotta figure out my spacing over here. Yeah, hung out with a few buddies yesterday. Played some video games. Mainly games that we laughed about because they were like, you know, really fun, stupid video games. That's like that's the real fun of it, you know. We play Smash Brothers. I love Smash Brothers. I have the Wii, so I played it on the Wii. I love Smash Brothers because I personally view it as a game you should not take seriously. You know, if people do tournament Smash Brothers, that's fine. But like, I never saw the appeal of it. Like, it's you know, it's a fun game. Play it for fun, dude. So usually, when I do these, when I paint my sculptures, I usually use airbrush paint. Not necessarily that I use an airbrush to paint them. I just tend to use airbrush paint because it's very thin. And I'm aware, totally aware, that there are model paints for that purpose. My problem is that I can never seem to find them. Like, unless you're actually at like a Warhammer store. I think there is one in Manhattan. Like, if you're at an actual store for modeling like Warhammer, you can't find like really thin, like flowy model paint. The most, you go to anyone who's ever been to any kind of art and craft store knows that if you go in there and say, hey, I'm doing a model, do you have model paint? They're gonna send you they're gonna give you the enamel paint, the testers. Tester, is that what it's called? I forget what it's called. I think it's called that. But it is like an enamel paint. It is good for big stuff, but not tiny detail stuff. So normally, I use my airbrush paint and I just, you know, I paint with that. But for these, I might have mentioned it in a previous video. These are a very, very nice acrylic set, given to me by my sister for Christmas / my birthday, and they have such a nice color range. I just had to use them, and they work well enough. You know, they get into enough of the nooks and crannies as needed. How's the focus in that camera? That is a good camera. Once you get the focus just right, like just at hand's length, that is perfect. So I originally sculpted these as a kind of mixed media. I used broken toy parts for some of the textures. Then I sculpted the rest with plastilina clay, that gray clay you get in many art stores, right? To make sure I got the eye just right, I did a really simple one-sided mold. I took like a really cheap latex material and pushed the D20 into it just to get one side of it. So I took the D20, pushed it into the clay, got a one side kind of mold off of that, poured some epoxy resin in there, cut off the extra pieces. Like the clay was like a half mold, if you would. I got like or maybe more of the actual D20 I got off of it, but it was enough to stick it right in there. Sculpted clay around it. Used a few broken toy pieces, such as these stalks, these tendrils on its head. They're called eye stalks. For those of you who don't know, you know, don't play D&D, they refer to them as eye stalks. And I used tendrils from I think a Spawn toy or something, just to like just to hold the eye stalks up, and then I went ahead and of course sculpted a little bit around it to once again. You know, I didn't just want to take other toys and then make a toy. I did sculpt around it. The teeth and tongue I think are from another figurine I found. Like I combined the teeth with like a really weird piece of tongue that I found from another toy. Maybe it was a Spider-Man toy. I can't quite remember. And once everything was sculpted, I did a urethane mold, because urethane rubber is pretty much rubber band material. It's the same as rubber band. It's urethane rubber. It's not silicone, which releases a lot easier, to be honest, as a mold. But urethane rubber does not have a negative reaction with sulfur clay, which is what plastilina is. Plastilina is a type of clay that technically has sulfur in it. Doesn't smell like rotten eggs, but it does have a smell to it that, like, if you used it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So at the time, hard rubber, urethane mold, popped it out, made my first like really good cast, right? But then I realized there was some issues with it, like the gap right here was too tight, so every time I pulled the mold, there was a chance of it getting caught and ripping. So from the first pristine cast I pulled out of it, I then went in with an epoxy clay. You know, not the, once again, not the plastilina. And with the epoxy clay, I added the final details, and that first resin pull from that mold is essentially the I don't know what you call it, the mother cast. I don't know. It's the mother cast I would use from now on whenever I make more copies of this. So I have a resin cast. It's resin with a little bit of like epoxy clay. You can see the difference in the color. And whenever I make a new mold, because sometimes I have to make new molds, because after a while they wear away, they break apart, etc. I use that. So essentially, every copy technically is a copy of the original. Every copy is based on a copy of the original. There you go. Because the original just, you know, it was made of clay. So once I pulled that mold off, it just no longer existed. It fell apart. Now, when I do sculptures, I actually tend to use the epoxy clay straight out. Like I rarely use. I'll still sometimes use the plastilina, but because of its limitations due to the fact that it has a sulfur chemical base, any sculptures I do now I tend to do with the epoxy clay. I can always sand down that epoxy, break it apart, and it's a little bit longer process, but I could use it just fine. And then because it hardens into essentially a resin-like material, I could use whatever molding material I want, let it be silicone or urethane. And if anyone's wondering, so I've learned recently how wonderful silicone is. That sounds really awkward, doesn't it? In terms of molding, urethane is good because it's strong, but once again, it has limitations on what it can be used on. Silicone is great because it releases a lot easier. With urethane, you have to spray a release inside the mold because whatever's inside wants to stick into it and hold on to it. But I've been switching over to silicone for a few of my newer stuff because it just it just has a I don't know if it has a better shelf life in the long term of how many castings you could pull out of it, but it definitely makes it easier. You have to worry about it ripping and tearing as much as long as you get there's actual different levels. There's like, so I used to use the urethane rubber I used to use was number 30, and that means it has a toughness to it. It's not as soft. It's a urethane rubber, but it's not as soft. So because it was tougher, it held the piece better and had a lesser chance of ripping. But like a rubber band, it would essentially dry out. So if you're using silicone, there's also numbers. So I use the silicone that's labeled at a 30, and that's I use it to Smooth On. It's a blue silicone to Smooth On. I love that company. There's some little bits of white speckle on this. I'm gonna see if I can fill that in. I don't know what colors to make these guys yet. I've done like 1 or 2 yellows. I've done a few greens. Maybe I'll do a few more greens. A few more like light, like greens. Get some nice slimy green colors. Ah, stand by. There is one thing I need to do. Let me just check my audio real quick as well. Alright, music is working, so we're good. Stand by. I am looking for... Aha! I have a little spray bottle I use to like keep all this stuff wet. It's acrylic, so it dries out quick. Get out of here. Bam. The reason I switched over to this new camera is because it doesn't have to be charged. It's plugged into my computer, but I don't have like a charging wire crisscrossing. All the wires are going that way, away from me. That was good. All right, so okay, let's readjust. Real pain. It's getting just the right gray tone. It looks a bit light. Let's add a bit more, just a little drop more black in there. And this is why the Incredible Hulk is no longer gray. So hard to be consistent in the shade of gray. I will go with that. It's a pinch lighter, but nothing horrible. I always find it funny when I see a story online about like, I was using my watercolor today and I accidentally put my watercolor brush into my coffee, like, you know, because you have like multiple drinks out, multiple liquids just everywhere. There was one artist they took a photograph of their workspace, and they were having like tea, and it's just tea. It's water. It's tinted water, obviously. And they took a photograph of their tea on the table next to their their watercolor cup, and they basically made they caught it ahead of time, but they made a comment on how their tea and their cup for watercolor were looking dangerously similar, and and that's why they had to like stop from it and change the water for their watercolor because they didn't want to accidentally like drink the wrong thing. I think I have 2 urethane molds for the deholders. But like I said, multiple use over and over again. They begin to break down, they tear a little bit. So I'm gonna definitely have to make a new one out of silicone. But as you can tell, the deholder has, you know, all these little eye stalks and whatnot. See, it's a bit of a pain to kind of like get a mold right for him. You do have to kind of make a sandwich mold. 2-part mold usually. Some people make a silicone mold and then they just simply cut it, right? They cut it down the center, and that can work for like simple sculptures. But if you're trying to keep as close to the actual model that you made, you should, take your time and do a two-part mold. And that in itself can have problems because it's so hard to get it right sometimes. Not everyone's an expert. God knows I'm not. So what I've been doing, and I'm sure I mentioned this later on. I'm sure I mentioned this a while back actually, in a video, was that with my 3D printer, I print a frame, like a box, to pour the silicone into. Most of the time, you would just take some cardboard and hot glue it. But what I do is I create the box, and it has pegs already 3D printed in it. Pour the silicone into it, take it all off, and then cut the silicone however I wish. But because the pegs are built into a frame, when I close the silicone and put the frame back around it, it holds it in place as if it was a two-part mold done in two sections. Because normally, a two-part mold has pegs on the inside. Like one side's like this with like little pegs sticking through it. Your model is here. The other side goes on the top and it has the opposite. But in this case, the pegs are on the outside of the silicone, being anchored in place, so it prevents it from shifting. At least that's the idea I have in mind. So when I do a silicone mold of him, I'll probably print out a roughly 3-inch circle, of 3 inches around, with 1 or 2 pegs. And then I just have to cut the mold. Kind of tricky, but I have to cut the mold around his tendrils, around his little eye stalks to get him out. I want to do another mold for the claw I created. That should be easy. The claw is pretty symmetrical. The real problem is for the hand. I have I'll pull it out in a minute for anyone who hasn't seen it. But it's it's a hand with like 4 fingers on it. And that is a bit tricky. Like I was so proud of myself when I actually managed to do a 2-part mold of that originally, but to replicate that success is a little iffy. Okay. Now, before I start thinking to myself, what colors should I do the eyes on the purple? What color should I do the eyes on the gray? How about we put let's do some colors on these guys first. I said I might want to do more greens. Oh, but I don't have any orange. That's not an orange. That's like a brownish color. Nope, that's mustard. Where's my yellow? You know what? Here we go. I do have an orange. Like a straight up acrylic orange. Yeah, let's do an orange. Let's do at least 2 of them orange. And then we'll start doing the detail work. As you notice, I also did a quick one layer coat on the black base, because I would usually save that for last, but then it would get on all the nice detail trying to get around the sculpture. So I figured do it first. Keep dropping my pen, my thing. Okay, let's try orange. Let's go for orange. Maybe this color orange and like a interesting blue for the eye. What's the actual color? Is it just say orange? Technically this is cadmium yellow, but the color tone is like the kind of orange I look for, even though it's called cadmium yellow. This yellow is lemon yellow, and all of these don't have are just numbered, which is good. I mean, you can always look it up by number, because I'm sure anyone who's ever used Copic versus Prismacolor knows the whole deal between like colors that are numbered versus colors that are named. Okay, how good is this? Oh, I do like that color. That's a nice. I forgot I had that tube of orange. It's gonna definitely need more than one coat, but So he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and he's sitting on number 7. Eye stocks. I believe in Dungeons and Dragons the actual beholder has like 10 eye stocks. Give me a moment. I just got a little ping with a text message. No. Stand by. Sorry guys. I actually realized I should contact someone while I'm doing this. Well, it's funny, like you cannot stop the internet. I don't know if you guys saw it on camera. You probably did actually. I just saw an image where it's like some random character that's obviously not meant to be sexy from probably like a video game like what's it called? Dark Souls or whatever, with just this massive rack. Just this massive rack. It's like this like an evil priestess with like spiders for eyes. Nah, we can make her sexy. We can make her sexy. Give me a second. Essentially, a friend of mine called earlier. I was busy at the moment. And I said, oh, I'll get back to you later. And I just never got a chance to because it just kind of... Ooh. Sorry. I just said a loud thump. Sounds like one of my neighbors upstairs fell. Oh, I can hear him yelling, what the fuck? Like, son of a bitch! Anyway, I forgot to get back to them. So I said, hey, you know, if you want to chat for a bit, jump in the stream. Now the numbers are, like I said, they're molded off of a D&D D20. So the numbers are inset, and sometimes when I do the wet brush just right, the numbers come out beautiful, and sometimes they don't. So I have to physically take like a really tiny, really well, what's it called, a micron pen, really small micron pen, and I'll go back and I'll just very lightly write the numbers, like paint inside the numbers with the pen. Doesn't always look great, but you get the idea. You know, that way you can actually see the numbers. Let me scoot closer to the camera. I'm like too far off the right. Sorry about that. Yes, I am desperate to get back into the convention scene. Not just, you know, doing conventions, which is nice. Summertime starts up. Get out, hang out with friends, do events, conventions, or otherwise. Just get out if you can. As spring and summer slowly roll back in. But I mean, like, literally, like, having tables, meeting people, talking to, like, other artists. Selling your products, or more importantly, for me, seeing people's reaction to the product, you know? I feed off of that stuff. I love that stuff. I love seeing someone, like, genuinely enjoy something I've created. Would I like them to buy it afterwards? Yeah, of course, you know. But, knowing that someone's like, that is really cool. Because I think I've mentioned before, one of my kinks is knowing that someone was moved and or inspired by my artwork, because that's how I am with other people's artwork. You know, Jim Henson's stuff inspired me. Just comic books, cartoons, certain writers, they inspire me, and I'm like, man, I wonder if one day I'll be the one to inspire someone. I realized that because I've been focusing so much on my sculpted work, once again, I need to draw. I keep saying that. I need to draw more, draw more. But to be more precise, I need to draw my characters more and just release them into the world. Let people see them. Maybe someone, will enjoy my characters. Because I love seeing other people. I love there's comic books which are great, obviously, but I love when I see someone who just draws individual moments in their original characters' lives. They don't necessarily draw an entire comic. They just kind of draw like moments that like you sit there and by the time you've gone through all these fun little moments, you know the character. They don't need necessarily a really strong continuity driven storyline for you to know a character. And I need to do that more often. Like one shot comics, like one singular page. This is my character getting coffee just moments before a dragon came crashing through the front window. Whatever the concept is. It's like a honeycomb almost. Because it's cadmium yellow. It's technically not orange. Yeah. A lot of this brightness will also be dulled down once we do the wet wash. How does different color tones? That's yellow. I'm messing with the lights right now. That's a yellow. Give me a second. I'm waiting for how it looks on the camera. Everything's being delayed for me. That's blue. The blue actually hurts my eyes. Do 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 do. Like I said, I'm just waiting for the. And then that's like one's white, one's yellow. Nah, I'll just leave it. I'm just trying to see if anything if it looks better on camera or not. I tried some airbrush on this, which is why actually like airbrush, airbrush, not just the paint itself, but I tried some actual airbrush on it. It kind of worked, but I think just doing it by hand with good old-fashioned brush and acrylic paint works just as well. Admittedly, I have to do once again more than one coat on this. I think what I'll do is let the first coat dry. Do a single layer of black paint on the bottom. Because the real issue is in between. Whenever I do a little bit of brush in here and in here, it gets on the side of the actual face. But if I do because it's also deep in the shadow, I don't have to do really a second layer of black. I just do a first layer of black. Everything on the outer rim gets 2 layers. Yeah, so I'll probably just, do the colors right now. God, look at that freaking airbrush, bleeding through that. Once again, we'll do a few layers of orange. We'll do, correction. We'll do just 1 layer of orange. There we go. Come on, Dante, you can speak properly. We'll do 1 layer of orange. Give it a minute to dry. It's acrylic. It goes pretty quick. The quick in acrylic. We'll do a layer of the black base, the physical base of the sculpture, and then we'll do the second layer of orange, which will hopefully look nice and thick, but not screw up a lot of the fine detailing. I give this guy lots of wrinkles. He's just covered in wrinkles. Wow. Sit straight, Dante. Don't hunch. I am hunching. I'm sitting on a stool. At a fold-out table that's just a little too short. Why am I on a fold-out table? Because once again, my work table is covered in junk. So my friend Orc Punch. Yes, that is his birth name. No, anyway, Orc Punch, good friend of mine. He's back in the city. I've been hanging out again because he's been traveling for a bit. Told me there's a website called like, is it Goblin Cave or Goblin Shop? Essentially, it's people who who just have workshops of various types, painting, sculpture, whatever. But if their workshop is like a complete mess, but a quote unquote functional mess, like mine is at the moment, they'll upload photographs of their goblin workshop. And he walked in and he saw like my goblin workshop. He saw like the paintings here, the sculptures behind me, the drawing tables over there. Like everything's organized on the side, but there's also stuff on top of what's organized, etc., etc. And he keeps telling me I should take a photograph of the goblin shop, because I think the idea is like you take a photograph, but you also give like a little tour, like you explain what's in the photograph. He's like, people are gonna love it, Dante. You gotta do a goblin shop photo. Goblin shop photo. There we go. So I have to ask him again, like the name of the address, the exact address. I believe it's called Goblin Workshop or something like that. Do a little bit of spreading. I don't want to have any big blotches of paint on this. It needs to be spread out. Some of you may recognize this color green. This is an old work shirt. Well, technically a new work shirt. It's one of the newer ones. But in design, it's designed new. Oh, no, correction. It's designed old. It's a new work shirt that I decided to use as a rag. But I have old work shirts from my old position that I also use as rags. Nothing's more cathartic than being like, well, not going to use this again. Might as well use it for something I am happy with. Put a little paint. It's like a little mishap in the mold right here. There we go. Put a layer of acrylic in the little mishap, in a little gap. Not everyone comes out perfect. What does Steven Universe say? Should I just do 3 orange? I'm gonna go do 3 orange. I'll do all 3 as an orange. I have the paint. Use the paint. We'll come back to it. No, Steven doesn't say it. His dad says it. What does Mr. Universe say? If every pork chop was perfect, we wouldn't have hot dogs. Though I do get a little angry regarding some of my not so perfect pieces of artwork. You have to like really, you have to work your way around it. You have to work with it. Work with it, Dante. If you try to make everything perfect, nothing comes out right. You get as close as possible, and then you move on with your life. That's a Dante lesson. I want to put on the headset so I can listen to the music. So this is the music that's playing is the fantasy soundtrack on Streamlabs. Because as of recently, the fantasy soundtrack, fantasy music, copyright free, blah blah blah, on YouTube. I guess someone finally decided, oh, I want my music to not be royalty free, or maybe it was always royalty free and it just took YouTube a while to like catch it. But yeah, the music soundtrack I had on YouTube I used to play got flagged. Nothing horrible, you know. It was once again it was a flag that's like, you know, where they tell you nothing's gone wrong. It's just you can't monetize it as long as these are here. Someone else might be using it to monetize, etc., etc. I go, okay, fine. You know, even though I'm not in trouble, once that pops up, I just delete that playlist I have on my YouTube saved, like on my area where I have like saved channels on YouTube. And I'm like, yep, not gonna use this again. Because once that starts, it just takes one person, one video to go up and someone say, oh, copyright claim, and I am not gonna get a strike. I refuse that. It's kind of funny because the music that was flagged, I mind you, it's fantasy music made by someone that purposely is meant to sound like pre-existing it's fantasy music. So I got flagged by the artist who's like, you know, I you know, this is my work. It's not meant to be on this playlist for like free copyright stuff. But the song itself is like an obvious like super close but just different enough version of like Lord of the Rings or like freaking Legend of Zelda. So it's like, okay, man, you do you, whatever. So I'm not sure how well it comes off on camera. Oh, sniffles. Oh no, it begins. I'm not sure how well it comes off on camera, but ideally, the D20 isn't like a perfect eye. It has like little tendrils that hold it in place. So it's almost as if he's made of just like little tendrils. Like little fingers that like kind of holding the D20 in the eye socket. I think you could kind of see it better on this one, probably. This song sounds like a freaking Christmas Hallmark song. Like, not in a bad way, but like, maybe it's like the little bells. Like, I mean, not the bells, but it's like the brass section. Bit of a brass section there, and I'm like, that kind of sounds like when, like, at the end of every Christmas movie where the guy proves that he is Santa Claus and he flies over. Really nice though. It is nice music. It just kind of evokes that, like, you know what? It evokes whimsy. That's what it is. Like very whimsical, happy whimsical. All right. take off the headphones because they're kind of dangling in the way. So, let's talk about purple-ish. Purplish. Whatever you want to call this color. I am thinking. So like, what color eye? That's good. That's gonna be prominent. I might do green for him. I'll do green for the gray, like a shade of green. I want to do like a light shade of blue for the orange, but blue on orange can come out like really weird. Because they're meant to be opposites, like red and green red and green and blue and orange are meant to be like on opposite sides. Because what color would be nice for the eyes? I could do the teeth whatever color I want, really. Keep them white or not. And then what color would I do, like the little bits of blood and mouth gore and whatnot? No, it might be too dull. The skin tone might be too dull. I do like this. I think this kind of deep green would be good. Oh no. Deep green for the bloody stuff on the orange. Just going through the colors I have. We have a nice mix of colors. Let's do light blue for the gore and visceral, but for the eye, shades of pink. I feel like I don't just want to do white for this guy. Yeah, but maybe, you know what, for the eye, let's go like a really off flesh tone for the eye. And then maybe a shade of blue for the visceral. Shake, shake, shake. Shake, shake, shake. Shake your booty. Shake your booty. A little bit of white, a little bit of that tan. Bit of a midpoint. Very light peachy color. Yeah. Where's that other brush I had? A bit of a rough brush, but it's tiny. I like this rough brush too. Keep that on hand. Alright. Let's see. Yeah, let's go with that. The fun thing about monsters, even if the edges aren't perfect, it's okay. Add a little blur. My God. Add a little blood and gore. Blur! Add a little blur to it. On the edges. And, you know, it's like Monster Anatomy. Whenever I do some drawings, I'm okay with some Monster Anatomy. If it doesn't make sense, it's okay. You make it work. My desktop is in the other room and I can hear it rattling. It's making some noise over there, man. I like that color. It works well. Not sure how well it comes out on camera because this might be too bright on camera when I'm up close. Oh, excuse me. My goodness. Let me see if I can switch this up a little bit. There we go. I just changed the lights to more of a yellow tone. There's at least one artist I follow on Twitch who does miniature paintings, like for D&D and tabletop games similar to it. Amazing painting because he paints in all the shadows and lights. There's like he'll do a sculpture of the guy's holding a torch. He'll paint like the color of the torch being pushed onto the figure itself. The name escapes me, but if you've seen him, you'll know. Because he'll have one camera on the model that he's painting by hand. The model he's painting by hand. And then he'll have one camera on his palette so you can see what colors he's using. With that being said, I'm sure some of you who follow him know exactly who he is. And like, I don't know how he keeps it in frame at all times. Maybe he has something attached to his head. Maybe he's using the Google glasses. Come here, you. Damn. The Google glasses, maybe that's what he's using. But he's always keeping it perfectly on frame. So sculpted in these, you know, aside from all the wrinkles and stuff, I do a little, there's like a scratch here that goes across one of his eyes. There's a anime X scar on the backside too. So I give him like little scars here and there to kind of like really gore them up. Alright, who's sending me texts? I'm getting messages from Instagram. X. Because some idiot decided to throw out the entire brand name that was Twitter. X. Because nothing makes you look more professional than when you look at your phone and you just see 3 messages from X on your freaking phone. Trying to explain to your boss or whoever it doesn't even use Twitter that no, I swear it's Twitter, I swear. These constant messages I'm getting from a website called X is totally legit. Stupid idea. Whether or not you like Twitter, I don't care. Whether or not you like Twitter doesn't matter. It's just a matter of I'm talking about branding. Just like stupid idea. how about... Yeah, let's make... To go against the dull of the gray. Because this is bright. So to go against the dull of the gray, we'll do blue eyes there. Blue eyes. White dragon. Or was it white dragon, blue eyes? I forget. Blue eyes, something, something, something. It's not Pokemon, but close enough, Pikachu. Don't need a lot, just these two of them. Should I add white to that? Oh, what do you mean? Dang it. Got inside the gap that is. There we go. I don't want to fill in the actual number gap and then you can't see it later on. Let's add a pinch of white to that. I want like a really icy blue if possible. A little bit lighter than it was before. Alright, try again, take two. That looks better. Don't know if you guys could tell, but it does look better. I'm telling you, believe me. Is this the face of a man who'd lied to you? Especially so close to voting season. Stay. There are a number of things I use that are free. You know, free program stuff. Once again, I use the basic free Streamlabs. And I use the free Restream. So, Restream, when it's free, lets you stream up to 2 places. It used to be more than that, but then they updated their service and they were like, oh, no. Pay for it. I was like, okay, fine, whatever. And I've mentioned this before. I use it to stream over to YouTube. So some of you might be watching me on YouTube. And I use it to stream on Twitch. Primarily it's Twitch first. And then it there's like a few second delay and it ends up on YouTube afterwards. But the real reason I have it on YouTube is because YouTube saves the videos permanently. You know? Twitch, I think it's up for like a week or so. Unless you're like a higher level Twitch member, then you can change that. Anyway. I am thinking of just saying screw it. Maybe just pay the full amount on either Twitch or Restream, and just that way I could be able to stream it to multiple platforms. Primarily, I'm focusing on mentally, I'm focusing on maybe Instagram. I got a good amount of followers on Instagram. Not a lot at all, but I have more followers on Instagram than some places. So I was thinking of just doing that. But it's one of those things where there's so many things I use that work just fine right now on the free level that to start playing, it's like not micromanaging, but microtransactions here and there. Pay for this, pay for that, pay for this. It's I feel like it's the same way I feel about Well, I could check out this show on this streaming service and this other show on this other streaming service and this other streaming service, and it's just, I feel like it builds up if you're not careful. Or maybe I'm just freaking cheap and I don't want to spend money on stuff. That is true as well. I am frugal. That's the word, frugal, not cheap. Sorry for the shaky camera. I just bumped into it to fix something. I don't want to have to do a second coat of this blue. This is so easy to like lose the detail of the numbers. But I might need to. It's such a light color. And these paints are good. These paints, pretty damn good paints. This is a premium Craftocritic paint. And by good I mean like they have like the right amount of opaqueness. Okay. So I could keep going back and forth and back and forth. Or I could try and finish focusing at least one color. I rotate among them to give this a chance to dry, to give this a chance to dry. Because acrylic, and like any paint, acrylic takes time, but it's pretty good fast, pretty good. Got the hiccups, excuse me. Pretty fast, pretty good. Just give them more white teeth. Sometimes I like to switch it up, just for the heck of it. Let's give them all a little bit. Let's just all give them white teeth. Let's just go with that for now. In all honesty, when we do the wet wash, it's gonna dirty the teeth anyway, but why not give them white teeth for now? Nothing bled off. Okay, nothing bled off the rest of it. Okay, good. So, what color? Once again, this acrylic dries really nice, really fast. Alright, so now, yeah, let's focus on this guy. Let's focus on the purples for now. What color should we use for the gore? Right? What color should we use for the gore? Since he's already kind of muted, maybe we could use this like olive green. It's like the muted gore coming off him. I think that might work. I think that will work for this. Then we'll do a wet wash. And, you know, do highlights after that. Just blowing into the mouth, getting the teeth dried up. Alright, ready? Smaller brush. Smaller brush that I could use a bit of a trim. Where are my scissors at? Ah, I see them. Stand by. There's like one or two little bristles sticking out to the side that are gonna like mess with me if I don't get rid of them. There we go. Like two bristles sticking out this way that just are screaming to like smear paint in the wrong spot, you know? Now we get messy. All up in there, look at that. All over the tongue. Get a little bit on the teeth is fine. I just wanted to paint it white to make sure there was no skin tone on the teeth. I have to do a little bit of a drool on the side as well. Just for the heck of it. Like that. Ooh, golly, like that. Okay. Now, I do some on the eye edges as well. Kind of fill in the gap between the skin tone colors and the eye color. Once again, a little messy, that's why I like it. Now I do need put it on top of it. What I need to do is buy myself some new really fine brushes. Really like fine brushes. Either that or just take one of these old ones and kind of cut them. Trim them down to a point where it's just a few bristles that are doing the job. Because there's a lot of fine details I struggle with sometimes. So, I'll show you right now what I'm talking about. Here's a brush that got all jacked up. It literally has just like 3 or 4 little bristles at the end of it. I'll keep it for that reason. See, a little bit of paint just on the very edge. Then I'm gonna drag it into the scar he has on his number 8 eyeball. Like that. We're gonna do similar things on some of the spots between the tendrils. Some water on that, make it flow a little better. Why are you like off camera? Jeez. I gotta pull it towards me. Sorry, guys. There we go. Nice olive, almost military color green. Just stick with this brush. I like this brush. It's a little big for some of the details, but I like it. It's a good brush. When I get a chance, I'll probably be just thinking about painting in general. When I get a chance, I'm gonna start a painting for a friend of mine. Just animal painting. That's all the detail I'm gonna give. Just they want me to draw. They want me to paint a particular animal. I'm gonna take some time to do that when I get a chance. As I turn him, I realize I forgot to do the X on the other guy, so I have to return to that when I get a moment. Let's do it right now before I forget, because I'm going to forget. I will forget. Need more paint. There we go. Little anime scar on the back. Not that elaborate. Doesn't really show as much as some other paints I could have used, like a bright red or something, but kind of like the muted colors on this so far. Ooh, that scar came out nice. See if I can repeat this luck so far in other places. Let's put one right here. Okay. So I had to pull it away from the camera because I was looking at it at a weird angle. Stand by. There we go. Okay. Kind of messy. Yeah, I think this brush, it's small, but it's really coarse. So it kind of like bristles out in weird ways. This one though, once again, it's bigger, but it has much more controlled tip, if that makes sense. Nice, it's looking nice. Put a bunch of blood here as if it's trickling down the side. There we go. And also, once again, a lot of the smaller gaps will be filled in when we do the wet brush and just soak the whole thing in shades of dark brown and black. And then we'll do dry brush on top. I know people do it reverse, but lately I've been preferring that because I feel like I always have to double dry brush everything because of that. There was still some white paint that hadn't dried yet on those teeth. It's okay. Get it mixed up a little bit. Mix it up a little bit. I don't know. This tendril right here has a weird like curve. You can see how it curves overlap, and it always is hard to freaking color beneath. Always gets in the way. Okay, let's get those eye details, and we should be good for this guy. Before we get to the wet brush, I might even once again do a coat of black for the base again. Nice thin scar there. Actually needs a bit more, to be honest. Alright then. Nice. Very nice. Let's see. Let's get that black. Finish up the base on the purple. Let it all dry. Give it some time to dry. And then maybe we'll get to wet wash. Maybe we'll just do all flat colors for today. Just get all the flat colors done. Whichever comes first. There we go. And we can always do a little cleanup layer later for the black as well, if needed. Besides, more layers of black on that base, which is going to be touching edges and whatnot. That's the thing. This is acrylic. I'm not sealing it with anything. So if you mishandle it enough, you're gonna get scrapes and scratches and whatnot. So it's good to do a few good layers. It is wise to do that. And I'm nothing but a wise man, am I not? I had my tablet plugged in, and it just decided, no, you're plugged in, but I'm not going to charge. And now it's like, we're shutting down. Tablet is shutting down. Thank you, tablet. Some machines, like after a while, like the actual like where you plug in the charging port just doesn't work anymore. It gets bent too much out of shape, I guess. So there goes my tablet. So for the little time I have left, I'm going to use my old phone. No, screw that. Use my new phone. actually charges when it needs to. Stand by, everyone. I want to get my new phone up and running, and we're going to that way I can see what's going on the chat. Do 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 do. There we go. I'm gonna turn on the Wi-Fi. That way everything comes in nice and clear. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Alright, good. I can see what's going on. Here we go. This way, if something pops up in the chat, or anything similar to that, I can actually see what's going on. Oh, and I sit down. Yeah, posture and a stool. Not a good thing. Not a good thing. So I just, I sculpted these on a base as opposed to making, even though the original idea was to sculpt all of these, cast them in white resin, and let people customize them as they wish, I still sculpted them on a pre-sized base. As opposed to just making them a sculpture you could put on something. Because I did that to make sure they were the right size. So this guy's on a 2x2. Which I believe makes him a large boy in DnD terms. There we go. Bam. Alright. Purples are done for all the flat colors. Let's, before we go into the fine detailing of the gray, let's do a second layer on the orange. Or should I just, now you know what, let's do the second layer on the orange. Should I do the second layer or should I just do the base? I have the black. Screw it, we're gonna do the base. Switch it around, switch it around. Do the base. One simple layer on the base, that way we could then go back and fix it with a secondary layer. It's all going back and forth, that's what it is. We'll do a light layer of black on the base, do a second layer of the skin orange to kind of correct whatever gets overlaid. Then we return to the base later on. And you definitely have to use the primer on these. I use a spray paint primer, basic canned spray paint. Otherwise it just slides right off the resin. It needs a, because it's once again, it's a resin plastic, so it just slides right off of it if it's not primed in some way. See, I get up right in there, kind of make it messy. It's gonna happen no matter what. Same thing right here. There we go. See what I mean? Let that sit. You stay. You sit. You stay. And then just coat the rest of it real quick. Oh. That's the weirdest song stuck in my head right now. People are strange when you're a stranger. In the rain. Faces come out in the rain. When you're strange. When you're strange. Like, I know where that song is. I know why I have that song stuck in my head in terms of, like, historically. It's I think it's like the end credits song. It's no, what was it called? What was it called when it leads into the credits? Like the actual end song from Lost Boys. People are strange when you're a stranger. I need to take time to look it up and see the origin of that song. Because there's some songs that get so associated with a film, people forget that they were like used beforehand somewhere else. Somebody once told me. See what I mean about that one singular bristle sticking out? Speaking of old songs that don't expect to pop up anywhere, I just saw an advertisement for like Green Day in concert. And I was like, these guys are alive? I'm so used to like hearing about like all these bands I listened to when I was younger, especially the alternative bands, like the early 2000s stuff, and I'm like, Green Day's alive? They're all still alive? They're all still dressing up like weird schoolboys and the little like freaking shirt and tie bullshit? Like, I was just genuinely like surprised when I saw that Green Day in concert. Was it Green Day, My Chemical Romance? Like, those were like quote unquote the classic alternative rock at the time. I think what's called early millennials. Yeah, we're early millennials. Any early millennials like myself. I was born in mid '80s. So any millennials like myself, like by the time high school hit, it was Green Day, My Chemical Romance. Those were like the big hits at the time. Not that everyone liked it, but that was definitely like the wave of music at the time. Want to make sure I could see this, but also make sure my phone's not gonna phone kill itself. Are we in good focus though. That's really good. That depth of field is really good. Like it focuses perfect, like at just about hand's length. Okay, guys. Now we still don't know what we're gonna do for the colors for the orange. But what color should we use? Cause this is like a dull, relaxed color. This olive shade of like color. But like gray with a vibrant blue. Like I don't want to lose that blue. So what color would we do for his gore? Should we use a shade of yellow? This is almost campaign yellow, almost the same thing. That might be interesting. Yeah. It's almost the same as this, to be honest, but that's fine. Yeah. Yeah. Put over here to separate it. Come on. There we go. I'm going nuts. Oh, there you go. I'm like touching the brush. I'm like, where is it? But from here, I can't see it. Ugh, it's still covered in black. I thought that was covered in water. Somebody was asking to spare some time for us. Yeah, I think that's gonna look nice. Just the seeming, just like the gray against that cool blue with something like yellowish, like bright yellow spittle and gore. That's a word, right? Spittle. Even though it's not the cheaper paint, even though it's not this paint, it is still a light color, and it's definitely going to need maybe an extra layer here or there. We'll figure that out. Oh yeah, definitely going to need an extra layer. That's a pain, but it is what it is. Maybe I should just take another brush I have and like trim it down and redo my mini brush here. The very edge of my glasses keeps bumping into what's holding the camera up. I do apologize for said shaky camera. This time I will not forget the little scar on the back. That's a lot on that. That does stand out nicely against the gray. Just gotta do enough coats to make it matter. Yeah, add a little bit of water, spread it out, but don't dilute it too much. It's like that whole balance between like making it spread, but not making it too thin. Yes. That does look nice. I like that. Bleeding honey. Maybe bleeding gold. Gold. I like. No, it's not I like. I love. I love gold. Ooh, look at that axe. Very nice. Just gotta wet it just enough to get into all the little nooks and crannies. There you go. So if not, oh! Perfect. We'll splat it around, make it make sense. That's fine. That's fine. I was going to say, sorry for not talking that much. I'm concentrating. And the moment I go to talk, I lose concentration. I blame you guys for that. I blame all of you at home who I don't know. Every last one of you. Get a little bit around the eyes. I always like to do a little bit around the eyes, like I said, where the eyes meet, where the color of the eyes meet the color of the skin. So you're not really sure if it's blood, if it's like tears, it's just like liquid coming out of this poor guy. Do a little correction with the spot that fell into the freaking paint. Okay, let's do the snoot. Did a bit much on the snoot. We could go back in there with gray. Did a little bit more than I intended. Let's change brushes for that. Dang it. There was gray on that brush and I thought I washed it off. The second time I've done that. The second time I've done, like, grabbed the brush I thought I had washed off and I didn't. Now look at me. Making a fool of myself on live internet. That light blue still, there's a bit of white showing through that light blue. There we go. Want to clean off the very edge of his snoot. Right about there. Back in there. That's way too much gray. Come back with just a little bit of gray, please. A little bit. There we go. Nice. All right. I'm just dropping this guy left and right. Okay. Time we got. It's almost 10 o'clock. I don't want to stop. At least I want to get at least all the flat colors done. We could call it a good complete stream if I get all the flat colors done. So I'm talking about figuring out what color to do the eyes on this guy. And what color to do, once again, the gore. If I get flat colors down, I'm happy. I guess back's kind of stiff because I'm hunched over, and I shouldn't be. You shouldn't hunch. What colors? So let's put away the colors we know we're not going to be using. So I'm not going to use the green. Wait, I could probably use the. I wonder how this green looks when it has a little white in it. I have different shades of green. I know how they look when you add white to them. They definitely have like different, really interesting values based on how, when you're adding white to these colors. I don't know what happens if you add white to this. I feel like it would just dull out. Let's see. Just a pinch. Somewhere, like right, a little pinch right there. A little pinch. Gonna experiment. Gotta take this away for a minute. I don't know. That's way too dull. That's way too dull a color. And it's a nice color. It's a nice like olive color, but I just no, I don't like it. Because this shade is that green. That's this guy right here. But I don't like the way that looks against that yellow. Just waited. I'm just wetting everything. Looks like I got a nice pink. Do you think we could go? Do you think it would look nice, like yellowish, with a pink against it? They had a brown in here. I wanted to try out. Not this brown. It looked almost metallic, but it wasn't. There's more metallic. Where's that brown? I had a brown. Oh yeah, it was like. It's this one. It's not that actually. It's a different one actually. Yeah, you know what? Let's go for like a very, very kind of whitish pink, like almost like very light pink. Almost like a blood, no, pretty much a bloodshot white, if that makes sense. Let's see how that looks. Freaking, I don't know if you heard that on, I don't know if you heard that on the stream. Freaking cracked my elbow when I went to shake this. Okay, let's see. Too light? Like in general, like altogether it's too light. I don't know. I don't like it. I just feel this it will get lost in that color. It is really bugging me, guys. Kind of stuck on this. Well, you know what I have to do? I still gotta do a second layer of the orange anyway. So let's get that second layer in. Otherwise, you know, doesn't matter because it's gonna look nasty anyway. You need that second layer of paint. Get some water in there. Come on, there we go. Get that nice honeycomb yellow, that Cambion yellow. Cadmian. Go ahead and Cambion. Talking about weird musical bands. Black is still wet, so I gotta be careful not to like mush into it too much. That's the wrong orange. So I was talking to my buddies yesterday, and I forgot exactly how we came up in conversation, which happens a lot when we hang out. We just like talk and laugh and talk and laugh and then make jokes, and we forget like how we got to where we're at. But anyway, we were talking about, in general, we were talking about Netflix and its tendency to like cancel stuff that may or may not be good. If it's not bad, they cancel it, obviously. But then there's stuff that's like that, like it makes you scratch your head, like why did you cancel that? And I'll always mention the Dark Crystal series, which admittedly can be hard for someone to get into. It is different from everything else. It's a series that takes itself seriously, but it's freaking puppets. So that in itself is really hard for some people to get into. Then on top of that, it's like, is it high fantasy? It's just like it's otherworldly fantasy because it's on another planet. It has its own lore. It's like it's not even Lord of the Rings where people are kind of used to elves and goblins. It's like a whole other species, etc., etc. So I totally understand why. I don't know what the ratings were, but I could kind of understand why they canceled it if the ratings were not doing good, because it is a hard thing to like get into. Even I, who liked it, had to kind of like really shut down the brain that's like suspension of disbelief and just like get into it. Really get into it, Anyway, the whole reason it came up in conversation was I was saying with the series on Netflix, which is a prequel, plus the prequel to that, which is the I have the Dark Crystal creation myth. It's a 3-part comic series. It's like 3 really thin paperbacks. They create so many, not just creatures, because it's Jim Henson, tons of creatures, but they make so many races in that show and book that combined with, I believe they released a like Dark Crystal concept book of just like every little creature they designed. You could do a full-on like DnD creature manual and module of Dark Crystal. Cause there are just so many actual like species in that story. You have the obvious. You have the Gelflings. They're the obvious ones. You have the Podlings, who are pretty much the equivalent of, I guess, hobbits. They're just little guys, like to have fun and cause trouble. Well, hobbits don't cause trouble, but they're really like part of the earth, and they're farming folk, and they drink and they have fun. Podlings are amazing. There's the Podlings. In the miniseries, they introduce a race of creatures with really broad, like 2-fingered hands. They only show 2 of them. Cause they introduce as a slave race. Like one of the villains brings 2 of them in, and their mouths are stitched up. And there's them, and it's just they're just like this kind of like really quiet, humble, like little race. Sadly, those 2 characters end up. Oh, spoiler alert! Warning you, spoiler alert. Those 2 characters, in their attempt to escape their slavery, get killed and get off camera horrifically Frankensteined with another species and get turned into the crab monsters from the first movie. So the crab creatures from like the very first Dark Crystal movie, in the prequel series, you find out that they're actually created. They're like a combination of this one like kind of Quasimodo slumped over creatures with really large hands, merged with like a spider race, a hive mind spider race, which was like the only race that was like willing to stand up against the Skeksis. But they all get killed. So it's kind of effed up. Then of course you have the obvious Skeksis, you have the Mystics, you have variations of them, because in the miniseries you find out there's like not all Skeksis live in the castle. There's like this one who's like this great hunter who loves the chase. He's not sloth. He's not a sloth creature. He loves like hunting and fighting creatures. And in contrast to him, or semi-contrast, his mystic counterpart is also a hunter, but he's like an archer. So he's actually one of the few mystics that's like up and about and doing his things too. in the series, once again, spoiler, you meet an actual Mystic and Skeksis that have like learned to live together. Like they're considered out the Skeksis anyway. The Mystic, not so much, but that Skeksis is considered like an outlaw and a traitor. And the two of them live together in a kind of like kind of like angry, not bromance, but kind of like angry roommate kind of way. But they are aware that they complete each other, so they actually like they are the exception to all the other Skeksis, because he's like, no, like I know this is my other half. Like I know one day we should like become one, but we can't because universes are effed up. And in the comics, they introduce. Oh wait, before I even get to the comic, in the miniseries, you also get introduced to the different tribes of Gelflings, which in itself is really cool. You have the ones that live underground, so they're like nocturnal. They have like lighter skin and like better eyesight. I think they glow in the dark. Or there's a scene where like one of them like dresses up in green moss because they know the moss glows in the dark. You have a tribe that's like a warrior tribe. So they're like the blacksmiths of like the whole group. Like, it's just different cultures within that. There's like a desert one that like they accept death. Like they know death is part of life, so they come off kind of creepy because they just kind of like exist like on this edge of existence. And then in the comic, in the 3-part comic, you get introduced to other tribes as well. Because the comic takes place thousands of years in the very beginning of it. And there's also a group of creatures which are like they're like lava creatures. They're basically once again kind of hunched over, but they have like these turtle shells and they kind of float on the lava, and they're their own species altogether. So you have like all these like subspecies that people started creating, combined with all the weird designs you could get if you like buy the Jim Henson / Froud. I always get his name. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correct, but the head designer for it wasn't necessarily the Jim Henson Company. It was Brian Froud, I believe. And Froud is the one who did lots of the work for the Dark Crystal series. Like a lot of it was just his characters, because he was really into he was more European myth. The Mystics are in fact based off of European trolls with a very large nose and the long flowing hair that kind of like disappears into like the tree line, like it becomes like nature itself. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure there's plenty of people out there who would appreciate like a monster manual kind of setup for that particular series. Is it niche? Maybe, but I'm sure there's still a market out there for it. Alright, so we gotta wait a minute or two. Let that orange dry. Still not sure about this pink though for the eye. We could just go light altogether. Just make this guy have white eyes, and then use the pink for the blood. He's really a light color character, why not? That could be a thing. We could do that. You're mixing up the eyes a little bit. Why not? Let's go with white. Just going to clean the eye. He's gonna have white eyes. Why not? Got some orange on that. White. These guys have white eyes. And we'll use pink. Pink will be their, like, blood slash drool. That's what we'll go with. Ooh, the 15 on the back here came out very nice. I have two molds I use, and on one mold, the 15 tends to come out kind of funny. This one actually came out nice. So a little bit of black in that. Careful now. That freaking airbrush just doesn't want to go away, does it? Like it's really just hanging in there. Lend me your ear, let me sing you a song. I'm trying not to sing it. I'm just getting this a weird like grouping of songs making their way through my head right now. I'm just wiping some out of the scar on his back. I put so much yellow back here to freaking coat that color. Get rid of this freaking airbrush. To be honest, most of this probably get lost anyway when I do the wet brush. It's all gonna be freaking lost anyway, so shouldn't lose my mind over it. Right, this brush is garbage. It is like blink, blink, falling apart on me. I also need to get some new water. There we go. Come on, white. There we go. Yeah. These guys are gonna have white eyes. The teeth don't need to be painted white again. Their teeth are pretty cleaned up. Right, I'm going to let this dry for a second. I'm gonna change this water. Then we come back, we're going to use that pink, and we're going to do flat colors for him, do some cleanup on all of them, a little bit more gray, a little bit more black for the base, etc. And then we should be done. Stand by. Got myself a Madeline. These are addictive. Really good with coffee. Ooh, I got stuck. It's pretty much the same color. Yeah, if you haven't seen the Dark Crystal movie, it is an interesting movie. The very concept of it, like an entire world, created with puppets and all that. Everything's made by hand by some person had to make it, right? Is it a great movie? Not really. If you saw when you were little, you'll be like, "Oh my god, this is cool," because it's so like out there. But it's a little weak. A lot of it, like, there's a lot of like mental narration by one of the characters. It was like it's an experimental film in storytelling. Originally, the entire film was going to be spoken in a made up language, and then some producer was like, "That's not going to work." But then also there's the fact that they were like, "Well, we need to understand, what's going through this character's mind." So they began putting lots of like mental narration. But it is a really cool film in like the way it looks, the way the way the world building is. With that being said, when you get to the prequel series on Netflix, there was only one season. That is a fun series. But the one thing I want to bring up for sure is when you watch the movie, these are the good guys, these are the bad guys. You know that. Like from the very get-go, the Skeksis are bad guys. They're greedy, they're slobbish. But when you watch the miniseries, oh man, they are like legit evil. Like they are meant to represent the evil side of a species. They are just horrible, horrible creatures, man. Even to each other, they're just horrible creatures. And it's like I feel uncomfortable watching some of the scenes because I'm like, oh man, why would you do that? Like, it's just certain things they do. Like, just in their own way of just like, we're doing this because, they have no conscience pretty much. They're just like, the hell with it. They don't care. Everything they do is to better themselves, and not even as a group. It's just more to better themselves individually, and then they decide as a group that's a good idea. So like, yeah, I would say check it out if you can. If you're even a remote fan of like Jim Henson or practical effects, definitely check it out. There's also the one thing I was mentioning with my buddies is like everything was made for the show. Like literally, they had to make the sets, they had to make the trees, the creatures. Like stuff isn't just filmed on location because they had to make room for the puppeteers to actually be in the scene but not be seen. And I'm like, all that went somewhere. I assume they didn't just like throw out all that stuff, all that equipment, the costumes, the makeup, everything. It went somewhere. It's probably in a warehouse somewhere. And I'm like, come on, Disney, freaking, you own Jim Henson. Make a deal with Netflix and tell them that you want access to all that stuff, and at least just hold on to it. Don't let it go to waste. But on that note, if you happen to live in the New York area, especially near Brooklyn and or Queens, check out the Museum of the Moving Image. They have the Jim Henson exhibit, which is about all his stuff and stuff that the company has helped with, such as Sesame Street. And they do have like an original sketch series from the original like movie there. It is a really fun exhibit. I went there when it was temporary, and now it's permanent, so I'm not sure like what is different from when I last went there. But yeah, but they have one of the sketches there. But come on, Disney. I would love if I mean, it is definitely not on their itinerary, but I would love if, since Disney I think owns the Muppets, they don't own Jim Henson. They own the Muppets. I forget the legality behind it. I don't know. But man, like I'm sure all that stuff from that series. It's been over a year since the series. I think the series ran during the start of COVID. But I would love for that to be picked up again because it was very interesting. I want to get this pink on this, but this orange isn't dry yet. That noisy hears me blowing on it. But in the meantime, let's showcase what is dry. Look at that. So he looks really nice. We'll do the wet wash later on. Do the dry brush on top for the highlights. Then we'll take a small pen and we'll write in all the number detailing. See if we can get some of this pink in there at least. Into the mouth. Into the mouth. Here you go. You got a pink tongue. Yes, queen. What was I watching? It wasn't New York's cast. I think it's it's crud. It's a group of artists. Jaden Animation. Jaden from Jaden Animation is part of the group. I forget the name right now. But they've been playing Lethal Company. I was watching a few of the episodes, and there's just a scene where they're trying to hype up one of the girls who freaking keeps dying as soon as she gets into the facility for Lethal Company. Like as soon as she gets in, she dies. So they're like, "You could do it, you could do it." She goes, "Yes, queen!" And as soon as she runs in, there's like a spider at the front door, and everyone, it just devolves into like all these people screaming. And she's just like laughing. She got scared from it, but she's also laughing her head off because she's like, as soon as I say yes, queen, this freaking like queen spider shows up. Freaking Shilog or Shimog, whatever the hell her Lord of the Rings name was. There's a little bit of black on that. Get rid of that. I'm just doing the tongues right now because it's the biggest blocky spot for all of for this particular part of the color, this particular choice. Then the rest is the eye detail and all that. Still some black on the edge here. I'm gonna have to clean up with that orange. Nice color, but it just is not as, the opaque nature of it isn't really up to snuff, to be honest. Don't know how far we're gonna get with this right now because both the black and the orange are still wet in some spots. I'm getting like annoying little runoff here and there. I think we might have to call it for now. Otherwise, we gotta wait on camera for like 10 or 15 minutes for it to fully dry. Which is annoying because I made a good amount of this stuff here. Let's see how far we get. That looks dry. Something right there. Really covered. Doing that first. Then we'll do the fine detail. I just kind of blotched it first, and then we're going to go in with the brush and try and get in between all the little gaps and this little fleshiness right here. The hell's going on with this pink? I know I have it. There you go. Why it's not working? Trying to get right in the little details, and it's not. Doesn't want to like come off the brush. There we go. There we go. There we go. Okay, it's one. Okay. That's a lot. There we go. something like using pink for gore. It's like in movies, like the blood has to be green, otherwise we get censored. Has to be robot blood. I think that was like Samurai Jack's thing, right? Just all the blood was like, well, it was never even blood. It was always oil. And even if it was blood, then they would be like, it's green or it's purple, or like, I love when they would have a character that was obviously like that's not a robot, that's a person, but then he'll cut it in half and it was a freaking robot the whole time. And it's like, you freaking show. Love Samurai Jack. I love the show. But yeah, they had to go around. They had to do some roundabout stuff back in the day. Just realized I didn't do the X on any of these guys. Well, not that I can. There's still a lot of... have to do the X afterwards. There's still a lot of wet orange inside there. So we'll focus on what we can focus on. Maybe this one. How dry is this? Can I get that X? I could get the X on this one. Does it show on camera? Yeah, it does show on camera. There's enough contrast in the camera to show, despite like the glare, the shininess of the paint. Good one. This is the one that's being a pain. I'm actually putting my nail in it to get rid of that excess paint. But it's dry enough, like it's tacky enough, where I could wet this freaking paint enough. This one's first. It's like a nice bubblegum pink. It's a bubblegum monster. But it always tastes like licorice. That's gonna need a clean up later on for sure. Taking it off camera. There we go. Doing orange around it to kind of bring it back out. Not perfect, but good enough. Alrighty then. Alrighty then. So, what do we have here? Let's, got a little bit of black and gray. Gonna keep this all wet as possible. Maybe tomorrow I'll pick it up on my own time. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Do one last thing. There we go. So let's go down the line. You have a candy monster looking dude. This guy, I'm going to have to definitely let it dry. Give it a second coat. Change that light again. Where's the freaking button? So you have your orange and pink kind of candy character. You have your cool gray metal and blue icy eyes with a golden spit. And then you have these, which I think I like the most in terms of like muted colors. This like orchid purple. It's kind of what it is, right? It's orchid purple with a off like beigeish yellow and kind of like a dark olive. So these we're gonna let fully dry, right? And then I will go back in there with a wet wash. And what I use for my wet wash is I learned it from Dark Magic Craft on YouTube, but a lot of people use the same formula. It's paint. In my case, I use airbrush, already like nice and thin water paint, water-based airbrush with a little bit of water and dishwashing soap. And I just grease it all down. I know Bill making stuff. I'm not sure what his paints are. His paints might be acrylic of some type. But his wash is oil. It's an oil wash. He uses mineral spirits. It's a whole different thing. But yeah, I use black wash. I have a brown wash I use sometimes. Just when I don't want to go too dark. But I don't know. You could argue whether or not it makes a difference. And then I go back and I do the highlights. I do the dry brushing, which is just basically all these colors but with lighter tones, like a lighter gray, a lighter purple, a lighter orange, I guess. But yeah, let me hold it for a second. Make that my make these my freaking thumbnail. You know, when YouTube snatches it up and chooses a random thumbnail image. But yeah, that'll be it. It is almost ready. 10:45. Nice. Yes. So I'm gonna call it there, guys. And yeah, so once again, check out the be sure to check out the information on the conventions that are coming up. Cosmic in the these are all New York areas. So Cosmic Con, Long Island Convention, Brooklyn Convention. Cosmic is called Cosmic New York. It's in Queens. There's also one the same day as Brooklyn Comic Con. I hate the fact that happens. Called 5 Points Festival, and every year I want to do it. And this is the second year in which I've had enough time to apply, only to realize that it's the same day as Brooklyn Comic Con, and I already chose Brooklyn Comic Con. That's also a nice convention. Check them out, guys. Get out there a bit. Some are video games, some are comics, some are just obviously anime conventions, anime mixed conventions. A lot of them are mixed anyway. Take the time. COVID is still around, but as long as we're staying safe and and taking our shots, or even just wear a mask if you don't like the shots, wear the mask when you go into a crowd. That way you don't spit on anyone, and just enjoy yourself. And that'll be it for tonight. I'm going to continue these on my own. If you want to see images of all the ones I've been painting so far, not just the D holders, but also the hands and claws. Let me get a little reference for that. Let's see. I don't have a hand. I don't have a hand. I mean, I don't have a claw handy. I have a hand handy. So here's a version. Here's one, for example, of the claws I painted. This one I purposely carved into and gave it like a bit more visceral gore, and I put them on a base. Normally these aren't even on bases, but they are 1 inch. That bottom with a 1 inch top. So these are the hands I made. Here's one I went a little wild with. So I took a 2 by 2 inch base. I put some foam on it, carved foam for stone, gave it a little staircase platform, gave it some grass. So while this one's a monster coming out the ground, this one is literally a like a silver. Is it a trap? Is it not? There's a chest on it. Is a chest a trap? It's like a silver display. So there's examples what you could do with them. And yeah, the hands are made with a 1 inch spot to put your figurine in. Same thing with the claws when I make the claws. There's a different shade of purple. I like this purple, by the way. But yeah, these are the kind of things I'll be selling at the conventions. Oh, bumped into the camera. Yet again, bumped into the camera. Here's a D-hole that I did a while back. This is with the airbrush paint. And I gave him gravel, put some mossy grass around it. So you can see what the final result essentially comes in once you do the wet wash, and it gets into all the little nooks and crannies. And then I take the pen and I just really gently do the numbers all around it. Let me see. It's a D20 with the numbers, of course, corresponding. For 2, a 10, a 5, a 7, a 17, an 8, a damaged 8, and 15 on the back. And this one I did differently. All of these is the 3 tones. This one I did 4. So it's a skin tone, the kind of gooiness color, which is green, the eyes, and then I gave him red on the scars for red blood. But for these, I'm just kind of like 3 colors for all of them. This is my personal one. Okay, I think that's it, guys. I think we're going to call it right there. So, once again, I am Dante. Like, favorite, share, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And I'll see you in the future. Later.